one podcast, mining the Magic the Gathering subreddits for salt. This is the Howling Salt Mine.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Howling Salt Mine podcast, the podcast where we mine salty posts from the Magic the Gathering subreddits. We haul them up in our little mine cart, and then we look at them, make jokes, maybe make some advice. Maybe we do none of that, and we just stare into the void that is the salty mine. I'm your host, Sam, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Tony. Say hey, Tony.
What up, what up, what up?
Mike is, of course, not around this week. As you guys all know, he is shooting down a river somewhere in a canoe, hopefully not face down.
Just shooting down that river, as one does.
Blasting down a river in a canoe by the strength of his arms.
Yeah.
So our friend Nick has come back this week as our guest host. Hey, Nick.
Hello.
Thanks for coming back, man.
Yeah. You guys keep having me back. I don't know why. You guys can't find anybody better, apparently.
Yeah, Post Malone was busy.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah, he'll be here next week.
Yeah.
No, I think actually next week Mike will be back with the magic of backlogged episodes. To the listener, it'll seem like he was only gone for a couple weeks.
When in reality, he's been gone for a fucking month.
Yeah, he's been gone for an entire month. We'll get him back one of these days. He did not die in the river, which we're glad to. I think it was multiple rivers, actually.
I thought it was lakes.
He was doing that. What is it called? Corsaging? Porting?
Portaging.
It is where you...
There we go. That's the one. Not corsage. I think that's actually the flower thing.
Yeah.
I know words.
The unofficial definition for portage is to carry a canoe uphill both ways.
Yeah, that sounds like it sucks. I did that once when I was a teenager, and just because I was stupid, I was up in my family's cabin, and it's two lakes connected by this little inlet. We had these shitty kayaks. They're just awful, 100 pounds each of solid plastic, terrible. And we went through this inlet to the other lake, and then the current was too strong. We couldn't get back. We're like, we'll just go to the marina and carry the kayaks back. And it was harrowing. That's probably why my body hurts so much now that I'm in my 30s.
All because of that one kayaking trip.
Yeah.
I did something very similar to the trip that Mike did. And we had 3 canoes in our group. And one of the coolest parts of it was we basically took all 3 canoes, lashed them together, and made a giant sailboat and sailed across some of the longer lakes. And we actually portaged the whole thing together across some of the lakes.
That's cool.
To get between them. It was pretty cool.
That's some Huck Finn shit, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Someone was blowing out a tune on an empty jug, an empty clay jug.
Yeah.
Little banjo twanging. Well, we should probably get into it, guys. If this is your first time to the Howling Salt Mine, like I said at the top, we are going to be talking about salty Magic the Gathering posts. We're going to be dissecting some of that salt in those posts, and really just kind of breaking it down, talking about table politics and things like that.
But Sam, what's salt?
Great question, Tony. I like how you said that. Salt is when you're playing Super Smash Brothers and you keep trying to get to the ledge and someone is just standing there and they keep knocking you back and you keep floating back and they keep knocking you away and then finally you die and you're just I can't do anything right and I hate this game.
I say it's in the OG one though, where someone ledge guards and they sit on the ledge so that you can't grab it.
Oh,
before that was
still do that
in the newer games. Well, no, you literally couldn't grab it when someone else was on it. Now that you'll pop off, but
trash.
I feel a lot of salt when that happens to me.
Yeah, my Super Smash Brothers salt was just both my roommates in college played Roy and Marth, and man, fucking those counters, fuck that, man. Anyways, That's what salt is. Salt is frustration. It's when you get pissed off, things aren't going your way, and you get grumpy.
Salt is Super Smash Brothers. That's what I understood from this.
Hell yeah.
Shall we get into it, guys?
We
Let's
shall,
do
since
it.
we have digressed way too far. So it's
We've
too
already
early.
digressed so
We
much.
haven't even got to the first one yet.
Tony and I actually talked about it, and we're planning more digressions in.
Oh boy. Is it
Just a
still a
light bit.
digression if it's planned? Isn't that like an oxymoron?
Yeah, just give him a little Flavor Flav, you know, a little bit of little Tony action on the side. You know?
Oh, boy,
Everybody
yeah.
loves
God.
Everyone loves a little side Tony.
I'm deleting all of that. That was awful.
that.
People are unsubscribing right now. All right, let's get into it, guys. I have 3 posts for us today. The first one is kind of long, but man, it is good. I really do need to read it in its entirety. There are going to be some cards that we name in this, but it doesn't really have to do much with the post. So you guys will get it as we go through. I'll try not to bang my hand against my desk much anymore, like I just fucking did.
Fucking noob.
You know, this
Supposed
shit.
to be a professional.
So this one comes to us from user 63 Reddit, and it's from the EDH subreddit. If you guys see user 63 Reddit on the subreddits, give them an upvote. Spread that good will. And this is titled Potentially Problematic Player. How do I deal with him? And the post goes, buckle in. This one's long. Where I live, the LGS recently closed down. So I have 3 other people come to my place once a week to play Commander. However, I don't feel like I'm enjoying myself because of one person in particular. If it's not having to worry about him using a combo hyper aggro, it's his attitude. After running Hinata the Dawn Crowned a few days ago, I nuked the board with Mycosynth Lattice and Cleansing Nova, which forced the only other player to die via Kothofed Soul Hoarder's effect. I was met with, boo, land destruction, boo. No matter what I say, whether I pointed out he removed some of my lands in 2 separate games the week before, Terastodon and Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, respectively, or I point out nothing, I played technically, said destroyed all lands, I should feel bad because he always has an excuse when he does it. Therefore, it's fine, but it's not okay when anyone else does it. He will get others to attack/target me because I'm about to combo off. I play combo decks maybe 40% of the time. Even when I do, I seldom use tutors to find any of the pieces. Cool, like fairish combo. But the true reason he does it is because I'm an apparent threat. And once I'm gone, he wins 90% of the time. Assuming I do combo off, I'm met with, boo, combo player, boo, or some other scathing remark. Or I'm eliminated, and since the others had ignored him, he has lethal or will combo off himself. Even when he combos off, he will state that X, Y, and Z isn't a combo, but highly synergistic. When he does it, synergy. Anyone else, combo. When things don't go his way, he'll threaten to, or actually do it, play his Yawgmoth Thran Physician cEDH deck, and the playgroup level is generally ranged at 3 to 8 power. I get EDH is meant to be political. I get stopping a combo piece will result in a crude remark as a joke, but I don't like playing with him. And to be honest, it's affecting my general attitude. I've become more angry or salty, as we might say. I've tried to talk to him, but he ignores me. I can't kick him out because I feel like I'm the bad guy. I can't find others because either he'll turn them off of Magic. He generally sat with the newer, younger players when the LGS was open and ran his cEDH combo decks. Oh, God. Doesn't like any of the other play groups, or other groups don't want to play with us. Ultimately, I'd like to play janky shit or play EDH Plane Chase, but I can't. I don't want to start to run Land Destruction Urza Turgrid, but I feel like I'm at my wit's end. What do I do?
This is a really interesting post. Couple thoughts. The first one is I was kind of mixed in my opinion of like what I thought the ops take was versus the player until they talked about their opponent being a pub-stopping bitch and dropping cEDH decks on casual tables. You know, at that point, pull out all the guns, man, blow up their lands, like do what you got to do. Like the other point, which I think is probably more apt from a like discussion perspective, is there's 2 other players at the table, and I'm curious what the conversation has been with them, right? If there is one problematic
definitely.
player in this group, I'm hoping that the other 2 people who are also in this are seeing the same things and can hopefully provide, you know, some backup to this person so that way they can talk to this problematic player.
Yeah. It definitely seems like the OP in this post feels some ownership of this situation. You know, they're inviting these other people over to their house. They feel like they have invited this guy and want to be kind of sensitive to that situation as well. So I'm curious about that a little bit too. Frankly, if this person is dropping cEDH level shit, or even just like threatening to, which is kind of shitty, and pub stomping the other people who aren't at that power level, I can say pretty confidently that I bet those other people are not having a good time too.
Yeah, I think Nick brings up a good point that I also was feeling the same way when the post started. I was like, I kind of think that the person is almost the problem. It's a kind of a classic case of they don't know how to not be the threat. Like it sounds like they're kind of always the one that's out in front, and like sometimes you just got to hold that shit back. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to get targeted first every time. And that person in the second place position usually is the one that's going to wind up winning. I think what like sort of made me feel that way is when he talked about the land destruction that the person was doing, it's that it was Ulamog or like some of these other scenarios where like when it's towards the end of the game and I'm going to like exile 2 of your permanents, I'm going to pick a couple lands because I think that's going to help me like close out. At first, that was definitely what I thought, but I definitely agree. Like, don't be a fucking douche. There's no other way of putting it. Don't just like whip out a cEDH deck at a freaking like casual table. Like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Up until the point where they mentioned dropping the Yawgmoth cEDH deck, I was like, well, you know, this sounds like they're just being apt at playing table politics, right? Like they're mirroring the threat. They're trying to push the kind of ire away from themselves and then capitalizing on it because it sounds like they win after that. That to me is a legitimate part of regular kind of casual Magic, or casual Commander at least. But the Yawgmoth in the room of being like, well, I didn't win. Now I'm going to hold my like grudge against the table and, make sure that I get my win for the day. Otherwise I don't have fun. Like that part is way too far.
You only have fun when you win, Nick. It's the only way.
Play to win.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are both making some really good points. I do want to point out a couple things in this post. One is, we kind of have like a couple sections here. The first one is really about like the land destruction piece. And, Mycosynth Lattice into Cleansing Nova is obviously just a very powerful wipe effect. I don't really think that you can compare that much to somebody using a Terastodon or an Ulamog to remove a couple lands. Like MLD is very different than targeted land destruction, kind of like what you were saying, Tony. But I do think that there is like a bit of hypocrisy that comes up even more in the next one where they're talking about combo plays, where when the OP is doing a combo, they're like, boo combo player, boo. And then when they combo off immediately afterwards, they're like, oh, I'm a synergy player, actually. It's very, very different. And like, to me, I mean, obviously, when you get to the pub stomping part, that's a cardinal sin. But even before we got there, that thing specifically with combos, I just think that's total bullshit. And, it's kind of indicative of the mood that this problematic player is bringing to the table.
So what advice would we give to Op? I think to kind of round it out a bit, my takeaway is I think they need to involve the other players in their group and have a kind of larger discussion with everybody. I also think like they should not tolerate dropping pub stomping decks. I think like there is a wider problem within the EDH community, which is the kind of clash between what the casual people perceive to be cEDH and what actual cEDH is. And that stuff is such a detriment to cEDH and like what is already, or it's like cEDH is a very different and fun format that gets a very bad rap by people like this dropping quote unquote cEDH decks and pub stomping.
Say it, Nick.
My point being, right, like anytime this gets like that type of stuff gets brought up, there really needs to be a zero tolerance policy within the play group to be like, look, those are two separate things. We are treating them differently. If you want to play cEDH, that's great. We should play cEDH and have it be its distinct thing, not try to be like, I'm going to play my super high power deck and I'm a cEDH player. I know how to win. I'm going to just topple everybody, because that's not fun for everybody. That's not what cEDH is.
100%.
So anyway, I digress.
No, let's digress more. I mean, this is a great thing to talk about. I'm glad we hit this topic. I mean, we talk about this all the time. I feel the exact same way. think everybody in our pod feels the same way. I say this every episode, and then I think I say this every episode. We play a blend of casual and cEDH. You guys know by now. You know by now. And honestly, like, pub stompers are not cEDH players. If I have a cEDH deck, I do not want to play it against casual decks, because that's going to be a bad game of Magic. I'm either going to just totally blow out the table, and it won't be the fun, highly interactive game that I want, or we have this super powerful person at the table and it's not going to be fun for them either. Like, all right, ready? Buckle up, guys. I am going to gatekeep. Right now. No real cEDH player will play a cEDH deck against casual decks.
Amen.
That is just how it is. If someone at your LGS or in your pod is like, hey, let me play my Thrasios Timna Razakat's deck against your like chair tribal in your fucking precon, that person is just a dickhead. or like a bully or something. Like, it's not fun. When we play cEDH, we want high amounts of interaction. We want crazy stack battles that are like 8 cards deep. We want like this epic chess match that is just bouncing on the edge of a coin. And I don't want to just like smush people into the ground.
Well, the whole thing just feels very like masturbatory, right? It's just like,
yeah.
I'm just going to make you guys watch while I get to do and like play with my cards by myself over here in the corner. And it's like, just that whole thing is icky.
It's like, just goldfish your deck at that point.
Yeah.
Just gather your friends around and be like, hey guys, watch me goldfish this deck for 5 minutes. And they'll be like, okay, that's cool. And then you can be like, yeah, I did it. I will say pub stompers will play cEDH decks, but they are not cEDH players, right?
Yeah.
That is the big distinction here. Tony, how do you feel about this, man?
I feel like y'all said it. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but yeah, like, who fucking enjoys being like, oh yeah, I popped off on 2 turns with no interaction? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm over here dropping like 10, my whole hand the first turn, and then like everybody else is like, oh, land pass. Like, before they even play a permanent, you fucking have won the game. Like,
yeah, like, you're not skillful. You're not good at cEDH when you do that shit. And cEDH players get a bad rap for it, man. And cEDH is genuinely fun. There are people that use it like a slur in the community, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like, oh, cEDH players.
That guy's a cEDH player. It's like, fuck off, dude. If your experience with a cEDH player is somebody just like being a dickhead, that person's a dickhead. They're not a C. Like that is a mutually exclusive thing. Like, he's just a dickhead.
I feel like half of our pod used to like feel that way. We used to be like, cEDH is bad or evil, and then all of a sudden we just played it once, and we're like, oh wait,
this is great.
This is fucking great. So, what do we feel about the salt rating here?
What are we talking about?
Exactly.
We're specifically talking about Sam's salt rating, right?
I'm just coming out of a haze. Oh man, there's just blood all over my hands. Where am I, guys? Are we recording? Oh god.
What year is it?
I'll go first on this one. This is a tough situation. I want to say it's a high salt rating because it is. It's frustrating to play with this type of person in your group. I will say, I did actually have a little chat with the OP when we were asking if we could use their post. Just asked like how it was going and if that was still a problem. And they actually haven't played since that post came up. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like there's maybe some scheduling issues doing that. I mean, maybe this is playing into it too. Like if it is such a bad time, it's hard to want to set that time aside. So, it's hard. It's hard when you have a very small pool of people that can hang out with you and play this game. And if one of them is negative and the vibe is off, it's like, it can kind of fracture the whole thing. So, I mean, this is definitely a salty post, but like my heart goes out to the OP because I think it's just hard when you're in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think salt is definitely high. My feedback would be to have the conversation with the larger group, try to get the other people to see what's going on and help do the kind of intervention talk that you need to have, or find somebody else to play with.
Yeah. I think the only other thing I'd say too, that's like maybe a possibility, it's definitely almost two-sided in my mind. And I think the one thing OP could do differently is just don't play a couple of combo decks in a row or something, or like, and that might be less fun for you. So like, that's not for everyone. If you want to play that, like, you shouldn't have to deal with this other person, but sometimes you could just bring a different style of deck, like something just janky and weird that sort of pulls some of that heat off of you. So that then when they're trying to rally and be like, oh, they're gonna play another combo here, you could just be like, no, I'm just here. I do that from time to time because like I tend to bring some heat every now and then. And so then I'll just bring out my group hub deck that like everybody's like, yeah, we're just gonna ramp and like do stuff.
Yeah, that's when I play Alesha. I'm like, here, let me play my very expensive like power level 5 deck that I love dearly and very rarely wins.
But I think especially like in their own home, you shouldn't feel like that. So talking to them, and if it doesn't fix from a conversation, you just got to find someone else.
Yeah.
That's easier said than done.
Definitely. Yeah. Especially if it's a friend, you know, that can be hard too. All right, let's follow up that really long one with a short one.
Makes sense.
Hell yeah.
This is one of those rare salty posts that actually got a lot of upvotes. This one's at like
Nice.
1K upvotes.
Nice.
So this one comes to us from user Captain Carnage. If you guys see Captain Carnage on the subreddits, just give him an upvote. Spread a little bit of that goodwill. And the post is titled, "If you scoop to prevent a player from winning a game during a paid tournament, you should be kicked from the tournament."
I wonder what it'll be about.
They're not wrong,
Yeah.
but I'll hear them out.
So the post goes, "So this has happened a couple times at my LGS, and I'm honestly not interested in playing in the paid events anymore. I was playing my Brea deck and attacked an Urza player with my Hellkite Tyrant with a Final Fortune in my hand. The Urza player scooped, and after I passed the turn, I should have won. The player to my left was able to combo off and win the game. I'm honestly not upset. It's just a game, but I could have won more packs if I had got that first place. I'm just tired of seeing it happen at paid events, and I think players should be punished for dropping just to prevent a win."
Yeah, so like I don't know what the official rule is, but isn't there some like can you just scoop whenever the fuck you want? Like I understand like
You can.
I thought in a tournament at least there was some kind of rule against it. Like I feel like it's got to be sorcerer speed. I fucking hate that so much. And if I was this guy, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, it's just a game, it's okay." I'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here. You stay in this game. I'm about to kill you right now. Win." Like fuck off.
I have a couple thoughts. So even in regular tournament play in Magic, this is like drawing tournaments, I think is not necessarily a problem, but it is part of the strategy where like you and a player will agree to draw a match because it moves your overall ranking better rather than playing it out.
Mm-hmm.
But the larger point is Commander was not designed to be a competitive format. I do sympathize with the op that having somebody kind of, king make, we generally frown upon king making in our own group. I think that sucks. But you are also doing something which is kind of contrary to the whole format by trying to force it into a paid tournament competitive event when it is like very explicitly meant to be a casual thing. And like, I have disagreements with the rules committee in general, especially with some specific, card choices on the ban list and stuff like that. But it is meant to be a casual format, and like shoehorning it into a tournament style event, you're going to get problems like this where you get the ability for people to king make, especially where you get things like in a small enough tournament setting where you have people that know each other and they end up in the same pod and can king make for each other. That gets really complicated too, right?
Yeah, that's a really good
Hey,
point.
I know I'm not going to win, but my buddy Sam is playing at the same table. And if I concede at the right time, I know that he can win.
Dude, I'll give you a pack. Just concede.
Right. In other tournaments, that would be considered cheating. But because it's in Commander and that's, it is a multiplayer format that is not designed for tournaments, there's no real rules to like enforce against that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point, Nick. Like, obviously Commander is this casual format, and the fact of a multiplayer competitive format that has this ability to scoop at any time, there are going to be issues. I do want to read a couple things just to provide some additional context here. One is rule 104.3a from the comprehensive rules, which says a player can concede the game at any time. A player who concedes leaves the game immediately. That player loses the game.
Yo, fuck that rule. Are you fucking kidding me? Who needs that rule in a fucking card game? Firstly, that they wrote it down. First mistake. And secondly, it should say fucking sorcery speed.
I mean, there are reasons that exists, right? Because like, let's say I have you locked out or some kind of weird loop where I'm constantly skipping a turn, or, you know, you can do some weird shit in Magic where people never get the opportunity to concede on their own turn. There needs to be a way out of that in the rules.
Right.
Or sometimes the writing is on the wall and somebody is just like playing with their food and you're like, please kill me. And they're like, no, I just want to see you suffer. And that's when conceding is a good thing.
Right. Imagine you were in like a Mindslaver lockout where you never got a turn, right?
Yeah.
Your sorcery speed rule now goes out the window because you actually can never concede.
If it's truly that though, right? And someone's being like a dick like that, I just pick my shit up and I leave.
But that is conceded.
That's conceding. That is conceding.
Yeah,
Tony.
I know.
You've now
but like,
conceded at instant speed.
Yeah,
Tony.
again, like the whole like competition thing, like that
You
kind of
have
stuff. It's like
useful-
that's not conceding. That's like
it is
that's
conceding.
pouring my salt out and being like, "Fuck you, I'm leaving now. I'm done."
There's a word for that.
Yeah, there's
though.
a word for that.
It's
called
sort of
conceding.
the same.
So the other thing I do want to just throw in here is the cards at play here. Urza doesn't really matter that much. We've talked about it. He's got tons of artifacts. Hellkite Tyrant is a 6/5 dragon. It costs 4 colorless and 2 red, flying trample. And it says when it deals combat damage to a player, you gain control of all of the artifacts that player controls. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win. Final Fortune says you take an extra turn after this one. On the end step of that turn, you die. So basically, this person was attacking Urza, going to get all their artifacts, cast Final Fortune, win on the next upkeep. Like, there's no two ways about it. This person is scooping to deny this player winning. And I do think, even though it's in the rules, even though you can do it, you know, to kind of manipulate the ladder in a tournament setting, I do think that is kind of bullshit. Like, I think that stuff does need to go through. Conceding when you're in a lockout that's unpleasant is one thing. Conceding just to deny someone a win and clearly Kingmake is pushing it a little too far.
Yeah. And like, obviously, trash blue player. So stands to reason that they would do this.
Blue.
But I think that's the thing, right? It's the king making that's like really the problem.
Yeah.
And like in our play group, you're shamed if you king make
Really,
even by
Tony?
accident,
Tony,
like
really?
I did once. I like gut reaction, just like king makes without meaning to, and I was like, oh fuck, what has happened? And then the amount of salt that night was probably the most we've ever had, I think.
That was a dark day.
Yeah, that was a dark day.
It was brutal, man.
It was like somebody shot a dog in front of everybody.
Yeah,
It was like,
was.
oh man.
Yeah.
I messaged Mike afterwards, like, I'm so sorry, and he just didn't respond. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, Tony and
Oh,
I like talked
shit.
about it a lot afterwards.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, that sucked. And I was like, yeah, that was bad. And he's like, I feel so bad. Yeah, that was a dark day. Should we read that record?
We should. Do we have it
I think it's
available?
okay.
Of course I have it available, man.
To be fair, if I remember right, and we'll check this in a second, I don't think that was a situation where it was due to king making or due to concession.
It wasn't. I made Mike mill out in a cEDH game
Yeah.
just before he was about to win. But then I lost on my turn.
And you handed the win to Nick.
Yeah.
You
Was it
specifically killed
Nick or you? One of the two.
It
I
was
think
Nick.
it was me. Yeah. I remember the post game on that was just like
Brutal.
you could hear crickets in the background.
Yeah.
It was a dark time. Don't king make.
Yep.
Even now, I feel the salt's coming back.
Yeah.
So the moral of this story is don't king make.
Don't do that. Don't do that
Don't
to your
king
friends.
Sessions are dumb if they're not at sorcery speed, in my opinion. Everyone can have their own opinion. The fucking rules exist to say otherwise, but fuck that shit. And that's all I have to say about that.
Hey Tony, what sort of salt rating would you give this?
Oh my god. I don't what is like the saltiest fucking bit of food that I can imagine. This is like when you eat sardines out of a can. Just like turn that can open, pop the saltiest little bastard you can into your mouth, and you're just like, fuck, what have I done? I fucking hate this. That's
Oh,
what this
man.
is like.
How about you, Nick? What do you think?
I have less of a problem with the person conceding, though I do think that they should not have. I have more of a problem with trying to shoehorn a casual format into a tournament setting, and that makes me salty. Unless you're doing cEDH, which is then by definition competitive and not casual.
Yeah, and conceding is still a problem in those tournaments too.
Yeah.
My take on this one is totally justified salt. Like 30 seconds away from a win, that just feels kind of shitty. It does suck that there's nothing in the rules to save you from that. And that's just kind of like how it goes. But, you know, you'd think that it wouldn't happen as often, but it do.
Well, that's the problem. You call the judge over and they're going to be like, rule fucking blah, blah, blah.
Rule 104.3a.
Yeah.
A player may concede at any time.
Fuck off.
Oh, so good.
I need something else. I need something different because I'm done with this.
If you're going to take anything away from today's episode, don't pub stomp and don't king make.
Yeah. We'll just wait till we get to this last one. Today, we're like speaking a lot of truth, guys. This is good shit.
Speak that truth.
Speaking the truth. I just threw my hands up in the air victoriously for the listeners.
Explaining bodily poses makes
Great.
them more funny for an audio podcast. Yeah, exactly. I slowly walk into the room and open the door.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to take another digression, my friends. I apologize. So this post comes to us. This is a Monday morning post. You guys know Monday morning. It is our favorite thing. People vent about their play group troubles, and we huff that sweet vape. I think we talked about that in the past.
We said we huff that sweet vape.
Yeah, they vent it, and we huff up the vent, and we love it. And it's the vape that gives us life. Except we will be dying soon because the EDH subreddit has gotten rid of Monday morning.
Boo.
Yeah, dude. I have to talk about it.
Killing that content farm, man.
I'm fucking pissed because not only is it a great place for us to get content, but it's also a great place for us to engage with people. Like every single post that we put on this show is somebody that we have like talked to. And very frequently I'm like chatting with them and things like that. And these are some great people that are honestly usually in like a tough situation and looking for help. Like think of the person in our first post today. And it's a real bummer to me that does not exist on the EDH subreddit anymore. Now it's like Monday memories, and they're like, put your happy memories and your bad ones here too. You know, if any of our listeners did post in there on Monday, I'm sure your story was great, but it's just a bunch of
it was great, but we don't fucking want it.
It's just a bunch of fucking boring stories of people being like, I won with my Atraxa deck and it was great. It's like, who gives a shit, man? That's not interesting. I don't want to read about your boring story. My son plays Magic with me now. Oh, I can see the glimmer in his eyes. Who cares? Make a whole post about that. Make a whole post about that, man. Like you'll get more upvotes. No one is digging into the weekly threads to read your stupid story. People are here because they want the salt, man. It is really bumming me out because I think it's important. I'll get off my soapbox in a second here, Nick. I think it is very important to have that space on the EDH subreddit because people need a place to vent, look for sympathetic Redditors that'll come through and be like, hey, that fucking sucks. I've been in the same situation. Or just be like, yeah, that person in your group's a dickhead. You're not crazy. Like, here's a nice dose of reality. You know, and if we don't have a dedicated space for that, guess what's going to flood the subreddit? A bunch of people making salty posts, and I will find them. Don't get me wrong. I am still finding them, but man,
that's the part I think is really backwards. I get the idea of wanting to keep the subreddit to be more positive, especially since it has kind of become the de facto face for the kind of community aspect for a lot of EDH. It makes sense that needs to be a positive space, but I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot because now all of the stuff that was kind of confined to this one, weekly post to have these kind of salty venting discussions is now going to spill over into the main Reddit. Yeah. And like it will require more moderator enforcement to try and, call those away than it would have if you gave it a specific spot. So I don't know. It seems backwards to me. I sympathize with you. especially for your content farming ability. It's going to suffer a little bit, but
I don't want to be like shitting on the EDH mods or bringing any hate their way. Moderating a subreddit's hard. You can't make everybody happy. And we have a very specific fondness for this one weekly thread that is probably not shared by a lot of people out there. Clearly, all those people who want like a space for positive stuff, yeah, like that's cool. But I do think it is an important place for people to be able to talk about that stuff. And I don't think it's all negativity. There's this stigma that it's people bitching, and really it's people talking about generally frustrating situations. Like, again, let's point to these last two OPs. This person who got screwed out of a paid tournament that they were going to win. And then this other person who has a really challenging situation in their play group. I don't know. I'm just sad.
Yep.
I'm mourning for Monday morning.
Hey, I see what you did there.
Well played, sir.
Well, let's get back into it. I'll step down here. To the listener at home, I'm stepping down off my soapbox.
He's actually still just sitting in his chair. I can confirm that. He's making faces with no noise, so you can't even imagine what his face is while he's trying to do this.
All right. So this one comes to us from user Todashort. If you guys see Todashort on the subreddit, give them an upvote. They are about to speak some heavy, heavy truth. And this post says, people around me take losing way too seriously. As a result, people are not really enjoying their wins, and I hate it. I get that bad beats suck sometimes, especially when your deck did not quite get going. I've been on the receiving end of getting hit with 10 infect early, freaking tainted strike, man, into, getting flooded the next game. I did not play the most Magic that day, but I was not mad or mopey about it. I did go on a salty rant. Well, now that you did me in like this, I guess I have to build Thoracle combo for next time, et cetera, et cetera. But if you know me, you know that these rants aren't actually serious, just me joking about my demise. Now, the people I play with will get mopey when they just start to lose or just lost. I mean, I do not expect them to be thrilled when they get run over in 2 to 3 turns, but the fact that they start making it known that they are no longer enjoying themselves really rubs me the wrong way. Because the person that is currently winning has to, as a result, hide the fact that they are currently enjoying themselves. It is at its worst when winning takes a second. Example, I have a vehicle deck, me crewing and resolving, and the resulting trigger has to be treated like going through the motions. It is also why I dismantled any other artifact deck I had, because God forbid I resolve side triggers when I have lethal in 2 to 3 turns. For the record, I do not play fast. Anyways, this really rubs me the wrong way. People need to let others have their fun. Now, that was kind of a long one. This is really the thing I want to zero in here, because the person that is currently winning has to, as a result, hide the fact that they are currently enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
He kind of talks about it and he says, like, I play kind of slow. So I definitely feel a lot of salt when someone goes in the tank, especially like it's kind of annoying. If you're not going to win, don't do it. And if you are going to win, can you do it faster? Like,
hey Tony, how many times have you almost won a game? How many times have you taken, like a 5-10 minute turn, twiddling all cards on your side of the table and then whiffed it?
I'm not saying that.
You are the worst at this.
You are the worst.
That is untrue.
You're the worst at this.
No, that is 100% true.
It is so true.
I do not tank half as frequently as other beats.
Pull up the records. Let's dig in. Let's go find all of the instances where Tony has totally whiffed on one of his decks, having taken some long, elaborate turn and gotten absolutely fucking nowhere with it.
And sometimes when you have tons of pieces, you take an elaborate turn to just produce value and you're not going for a win. Like, I get that when you're storming off or something, it is much more palatable when at the end that somebody's going to win. But like, sometimes you just have to play your deck, and your deck has a lot of triggers, Tony, don't you know? Don't you know, Tony?
Just for that, I'm going to steal Savala with Gilded Drake again.
I'm not talking about cEDH.
You were going to do that anyway.
I was definitely going to do that anyway. To take it back to the thesis of the statement, losing sucks for sure, but you do have to remember that like the other players are there to win the game as well. Somebody has to win the game, unless you like literally are forcing everybody to draw, which is a possibility. The advantage of losing is you get to play again. Like maybe this is a case where like you're in a long game and
Mhm.
then it kind of fizzles at the end and there's a feel bad moment. But I don't know. To some extent, you should just kind of talk through that and move on, right? Like let it go. Unless you're Tony and you'll hold a grudge forever.
You know, the things that really stick out to me, I already mentioned one, is just that the person winning has to hide the fact that they're enjoying themselves. And then the other thing is people bringing the game down through verbal and nonverbal cues. You know, it happens to everybody. It happens to me sometimes where you get sulky and you're just like, man, like things aren't going well. This whole game has been a bust. Like, I'm just not having fun, you know? But at the same time, like people are still playing the game. And, you know, I don't have a magical trick for this stuff. I do think it's like, it's interesting to talk about it and kind of shine a light on it. But I still struggle with this. I mean,
Yeah.
we play games sometimes where at the end, we're like, who's the saltiest bay? And they'll be like, it's Sam. And I'm like, I'm not salty. I just didn't have any fun tonight.
Yeah. I feel like those circumstances are usually the result of
Keeping a bad hand.
yeah, well, it's keeping a bad hand or getting a poor start or just getting land screwed or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It has very little to do with like being stomped out of the game from another player. In my experience, anyway. I'm sure other people are gonna
Same.
have different ones, but it's usually the case where like I can see everybody else is doing stuff and I can't because of my own devices, my own stupidity of keeping a one land hand or whatever it might be. But I got screwed out of the game by my own doing early on in the game and I can't take any game action, right? Like
There's nothing worse than having that bad start and then being in a long game. Like not a game that goes
Right.
45 minutes, a game that goes an hour and a half. And you're like, I still suck. And it's been an hour and 15 minutes and I'm still not doing anything. And my friends haven't killed me because they're polite, but I also might as well just be dead and out of the game.
and then you win. Then you win.
But not sometimes,
but
you
it doesn't
still
feel
don't.
good. I mean, I've definitely had cases where like I'll be totally screwed out of the beginning of the game because I kept some stupid hand or whatever, just bad cards, you know, bad luck of the draw. And I sit there and I'm like, well, I can't do anything. And because you're the quiet player and people generally feel bad for you, they leave you alone. They leave you alone. They leave you alone. All of a sudden, it's you and one player left in the game. You've managed to recover your board state because everybody forgot about you, and then you win. And it's not a good win. It doesn't feel good because you know you don't deserve it, but it is a win.
It's
And
like, oh,
you
they
know what?
forgot about me. And then I clawed my way from the gutter and just
Right.
like punched someone and then I won.
Not even forgot, just pitied. Just fucking pitied me. Like, oh, Tony still doesn't have more than 2 lands.
It's like it's like when you're playing tag with a toddler and you're like, oh, you're catching me. You're gonna
oh my god. So
just
true.
your
That's
friends
like
just love
exactly
you and
it.
they're like, hey, let's just give this one to Sam. He seems kind of sad. Whoa, wow. You tagged me with a 3-2. Good work, buddy. Wow, that's so good.
So what do we think of the salt rating here?
I don't think this is super salty, but I do think that it is pointing out something that happens a lot in the game. You know, people having to hide the fact that they're enjoying themselves. There's nothing worse than when your combo is going off for the first time, maybe ever, and you're like, it's happening. And everyone around you is just like sad. And you're like, cool. No one's here to appreciate this with me. Or you can't even get the chance to like go through the actual motions of the combo because you just feel bad like doing that in front of a bunch of sad people and being like, and then this happens and this. So you're just like, and then, you know, the combo happens. I guess I win.
Yeah. I think like this is like ice melt salt, right? It's like, oh, the street is frozen over. I got to melt this down a bit. In terms of like how to potentially fix this or at least work through it, having those kind of post-game debriefs, I think it might be a good way to help alleviate that, especially you as the winner, right? If you're able to show empathy to the person who is like lost, be like, man, that really, like, you had some bad breaks that game. That sucks. Like, yeah, you got mana screwed. I'm sorry that happened to you. And just kind of like talking through the things that did happen to the game, I think that might help. I know that's kind of helped with us because it gives the person be like, yeah, that did suck, but hey, that was cool that you were able to do blah blah blah, right? Like having those kind of debriefs.
Even mid game, sometimes, you know, if you're talking about it, you can be like, oh man, like you're getting like screwed right now. And that just gives that person a chance to be like, yeah, I am getting screwed. And you're like, yeah, that sucks, man. Like, you know, that happens sometimes. Like, I think when you do see somebody kind of shutting down like that at the table, like starting to talk to them, and, you know, we talk a lot about how we like to turn salt into sort of a joke to kind of diffuse the situation. And that's another good time to just kind of bust out some levity, laugh a little bit with your friends and be like, yeah, that sucks. It happens. But, you know, maybe you'll draw a land next turn. Probably not. And kind of crack
right.
Well, I only put 10 in my deck.
Yeah.
Or it's like you're gonna mill somebody, or you're gonna exile one of their cards, and you'll be like, don't worry, I'll hit your land. And
then
you do, and then it's kind of like, hey, like they still hate you, but like it's a little more of a joke at that point. But what can you do?
Yeah, Tony, that feels so good when you do that.
Yeah, that definitely makes me feel better.
Well, is it that time of the week?
Oh man, you know it's that time of the week. It comes every week. The salty card of the week.
We're making up a theme song.
We really need theme music, and to like not leave those in, as I think they're gonna get taken out, and then they never do. But
I leave in all of our stupid little songs we sing.
So I've got one here that is in the vein of things that we have talked about before, but it's a little different. So I'm interested in how you guys feel about it. I know how I will feel about it. I did another random number generator, and this is what we landed on. This is Boil. It's 3 colorless and a red for an instant. Destroy all islands.
Oh, fuck blue.
I don't know. Like, I swear to you, I didn't like craft this. I like fucking hate blue, obviously, but like,
Tony, you
literally
fucking picked this, man.
I know. And so when I saw it, I was like, fuck me. No one's gonna believe that I like did this. But let's Sam, how does this one make you feel?
Like totally fine.
Does this even see play?
Yeah. I will point out that there is also a very similar card called Boiling Seas, which is basically the exact same thing, but it's sorcery speed. In 8th edition, they printed Boil. And then in 9th edition, they printed Boiling Seas, because apparently instant was too fast, but that effect was still good. Yeah, this doesn't really make me salty. I mean, if I was playing mono blue and someone hit me with this, I would be salty. But who's putting this in their deck? I think if someone's putting this in their deck, they probably have some crazy jank to turn all of my lands into islands. And
you mean
drop this
Quicksilver Fountain?
Huh?
Oh,
well, I'll tell you, it is number 93 on the list, so it's in like 1100 decks.
Yeah.
So it's not very high up there, and it's a 1.67 salt rating,
just barely in there. Like it does technically destroy lands, so I guess we can feel salty about it. Like, people are just kind of giving it some pity votes.
I actually feel like it makes me the opposite of salty. I'm like fucking giddy reading this
right now.
Say,
this is like anti-salt. This is like, it is like a sodium diet pill that you have to take to like lower your cholesterol or something like that. It is generally beneficial for you.
It's like a spoonful of citric acid. It's like very powerful and almost salty, but almost sweet and kind of bitter, you know?
Yeah. I want Mike to run this in like his mono red Magna cEDH deck. Just like fucking wreck train once.
It's 5 mana though, right? Like if it
it's
was
4,
like,
it's 4.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's gonna win him the game. I'm just saying I want it in there.
With the way cEDH is, though, that's gonna hit like 2 lands. Like,
I was gonna say
it's gonna be so bad.
All the dual islands, like,
yeah. How many lands do we have out in your average cEDH game? Like,
in our
2 to
games,
3
it's running stacks, so it's like fucking 7 or 8.
Especially in our meta, where our meta is not particularly blue heavy to begin with, and then even when it is, it tends to be multicolor. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, Tony,
this is like,
I'm gonna get this in a deck. I'm gonna get it in one of my own
deck?
decks, and then I'm gonna fucking slam it down.
Okay. Rebuild Godo.
And you guys are gonna counter it because you're fucking playing blue, and I'm not gonna be able to actually do it. But like, I'm telling you, it hit at least 6 lands minimum.
Minimum. Nick, how do you feel about this? We didn't get to hear your take.
I think my take is that it is anti-salt inducing for me. It actually fixes some other salty cards. I think I mentioned Quicksilver Fountain earlier, which just to recap, Quicksilver Fountain is a 3-mana artifact. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts a flood counter on target non-island land he or she controls. That land is an island as long as it has a flood counter on it. And then it finally has a separate clause at the end of a turn. If all lands in play are islands, remove all flood counters. This is a very annoying, kind of mild stacks piece that some people play, especially in mono blue decks, because you basically turn off other people's lands that they can't get access to colored mana. So to turn that around on the blue player and then just blow up all the lands, I think would be pretty funny.
I would be remiss to mention a couple things. First of all, don't at me. Boyle was printed in Tempest. Do not at me.
At him.
Has
Please.
anyone at you yet?
People at me all the time. And Boiling Seas was printed in Portal. Don't at me. The other thing that I would be remiss to mention is Tsunami, which is 3 and a green for sorcery that also says destroy all islands.
Nice.
What a great effect.
Yeah.
Wow, fuck green.
Yeah, right.
Green is fucking overpowered. In like 2 episodes ago, weren't we talking about we were debating whether green had like a mass land destruction effect? It totally does.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's islands, so it's okay.
Islands are trash. Worst card in Magic. Overpowered.
Everybody go to your nearest card search and look up the art for Tsunami. It's like this giant wave that's destroying a little town, and the little town just looks like 6 penises. It just looks like 6 dicks all stacked next to each other. I swear. You guys look it up right now.
You're not wrong. I'll say that.
Yeah, I guess I'm not
And they're
gonna
like
say
flesh
you're
colored.
right, but I'm not gonna say you're wrong either, I suppose.
Richard Thomas was just like winging it that day.
Yeah, if you don't zoom in, those are penises for sure.
Yeah.
Tony is often zooming in on questionable penis art. It's got to be sure.
Just really got to verify.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you gotta get a close look.
Yep.
Well, that was lovely, Tony, and that'll be your last time doing it for a while. Mike will be back next week.
Nice.
I appreciate you standing in.
You did great, and you can never do it again.
Yeah, the audition was fantastic, and you didn't get the job. Thanks for tuning in to the Howling Salt Mine podcast today, everybody. We really appreciate it. I just want to shout out all of our listeners, all the people reaching out to me in DMs on Reddit or on Instagram, showing their support. We got a bunch of awesome friends on Instagram that are like boosting our posts and just being really supportive, chatting with us. Definitely a cool group of people on there. You guys all know who you are. It's been super cool and humbling to see a lot of the support that we're getting with this podcast. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you guys are liking it too. The best thing that you can do for us is to give us like a 5-star rating or something on whatever listening app you're using, or on all of them if you want to be really cool, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That's huge. Tell your friends. Like, word of mouth is kind of our biggest advertiser right now. We do our best with other things and it does work. But people telling their friends, telling their play group, and just getting the word out, that is huge for us. If you guys want to follow us, we're on Instagram at the Howling Salt Mine. Check us out on Reddit. We're usually posting weekly or engaging in other posts. Our username is also the Howling Salt Mine. And email us your stories. We love to hear salty stories. We want to hear stories about you getting salty, you making your friends salty. Maybe come to us with a little salty confessional and confide in us with your salty crimes. And email us at thehowlingsaltmine@gmail.com. And as always, we ask that you keep it short, sweet, and to the salt with those emails. Do you guys have anything to do you guys have anything to plug?
Well, it's just a brief reminder that we'll be at Magic Fest 30 in Vegas, baby. Let's fucking go. But nothing else from me.
I put out some music on the Spotify's. Which is fun. I have an EP out, which sounds way fancier than it actually is. It's a recording of a live set that I did, and I turned it into a short little album. It is under the album title Impulse Reaction. on Spotify under the artist Build. That is me. Check it out. Listen to my sweet tunes.
It's specifically it's build period.
Yeah.
So if you're searching for it, it is build period. I've been listening to it a ton. It's great.
Sam's pumping up my streaming numbers so I can get a couple extra cents this month. Alternatively, you can find me on Bandcamp and pay me money directly as an option.
I don't think I have anything to plug. You know, I do want to shout out, like I've been doing in the last few episodes, I want to shout out our buddies at the Battle Standard in East Windsor, Connecticut. It's a great LGS. Go check it out. And I think that's it for us today, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in and stay salty. And as always, don't forget to draw an additional card during your draw step.
It's the howling song night. The howling song night.
However, I don't feel like I'm enjoying myself because one person in particular, if it's not having. However, I don't feel like I'm enjoying myself because of one person. Come on, man. I'm
You stumbled over it
here.
a second time.
No, I didn't. I did it right.
You definitely did.
After running Hinata the Dawn crowd Hinata the Dawn crowned, Tony is like, Tony is losing it over there. Give me a break, man.
This is going to be the world's longest episode.
I have a lot to read.
I know, it's okay.
This is a long one. It's going to be a long episode. You're laughing
Yeah.
at me all the time.